Sometimes the question tells you more than the answer ever could. Because the moment Piers Morgan asked Mehdi Hasan whether he was sad that Senator Lindsey Graham had died, this stopped being a conversation about one politician. It became a test of something much bigger: who gets remembered honestly, and who gets wrapped in instant sainthood the moment they pass away. What follows isn't really about grief. It's about whether journalists are supposed to tell the truth when it's uncomfortable, or whether powerful people get a temporary immunity from criticism simply because they're no longer here to answer for their record. And then something else happens that I think deserves just as much attention. The conversation shifts from Lindsey Graham to Donald Trump to double standards, and to whether the people demanding civility today have been anywhere near as consistent when the insults came from their own side. That's where this debate really takes off. This is Wilson Smith, where we cut through the spin and follow the truth. If you're done with the sanitized version, you're in the right place. Now let's get into it.
With a whole bunch of different issues. I've traveled with the president all over the world. We went to North Korea, actually, China, et cetera, to deal with some of the geopolitical threats that this country faces. Now, they're not imminent threats. They're more economic. They're not military in nature, in that they're not doing kinetic activity in the moment and funding terrorism to try and kill Americans, which Iran, as you pointed out, clearly has done. But most news reports pretty clearly have pointed out different pockets within this Iranian regime. And as Donald Trump said, we kind of did get rid of the regime because we killed everybody in line for control of Iran. However, there are two basically competing groups. One, very militant. I'm going to use the word old school to define, use the words old school to define them. They're the ones who really want to continue down the path of death and destruction, stated goals of killing Americans, killing Jews, et cetera, versus ones who may be a little bit more moderate. And I guarantee you this administration has spoken to both factions in both groups. It appears that when we do move toward a memorandum of understanding, it's because we've had conversations with those who tend to be a little bit more sensible and maybe care about the well-being of their own people. And then, of course, those who don't, who have killed many tens of thousands of their own people, tend to take control by striking targets, killing civilians, and then Donald Trump has to change.
This reminds me, you know what this reminds me of, though, Hogan, it reminds me of the scorpion and the frog tale, which I won't repeat because everybody knows it, but it reminds me about the scorpion. Scorpions tend to behave like scorpions. I just want to end very quickly, Mehdi, because we run out of time.
Hold on. Just on the Iran point, I've got to say very quickly.
No, you can't. You can't, because I've got another guest waiting.
Well, I waited half an hour to come on this show, and then you'd save my vocal cord. So let me just say this. The Iranian regime, to say there's been regime change in Iran is gaslighting of the highest order.
I agree.
We've replaced Ayatollah Khamenei with Ayatollah Khamenei, a more radical, hardline version, who has much more of an incentive to get
Mehdi, I agree with you 100%. So let's forget that. I just want to ask you very finally, Mehdi, are you sad that Senator Lindsey Graham has died?
No, I'm not sad. I'm not celebrating it either, as you suggested in your introduction. I think it's a bit of a straw man to say everyone's celebrating his death. I think as journalists, Piers, you and I, we hold power accountable. We speak truth to power. I'm not of the school that says when a politician dies, a public figure dies, we treat them like a private figure and just shut up. I don't think journalism should turn into hagiography. At Zeteo, for example, we published a list of what Graham said and did. We just let the facts speak for themselves. He was a man who said awful things, genocidal things, racist things, and we put that on the record for people to see. That doesn't mean he didn't also do, I'm sure, good things in Congress as well, but overwhelmingly he argued for wars, including this Iran war that outlives him, that killed 100 schoolgirls on day one of the war. He argued for the Iraq war that you and I opposed, that killed over 1 million people. He never met a Middle East country he didn't want to invade, and I think that's how we should remember him. We should remember the full record. The problem is when powerful people die, people in our media, especially mainstream corporate media, want to just do hagiography and say, what a wonderful person they were. Weren't they lovely? And I'm sure many of those powerful people were lovely and they have families who love them. But as journalists, our job is to say, here's what they did, here's the truth about their life and record, here's an accurate obituary. And with Lindsey Graham, the man has a ton of blood on his hands and we shouldn't just forget that.
No one's asking anyone to forget the record of politicians, but I do think in the immediate aftermath of public figures dying, unless they're genocidal maniacs like, Hitler or Mao or Stalin, Hogan, there should be a modicum of respect for the death of a human being. And my issue with this, it doesn't just relate to the left.
Tell that to Donald Trump.
Well, I was going to make the point. I mean, Hogan, I presume you would be appalled by the reaction from many on the left to Lindsey Graham's death, as I have been.
There aren't many on the
but
left.
But of course, there are many, actually. I've seen so much of it online.
And
it's honestly,
Joe Biden, Kamala Harris, every prominent Democrat.
It is disgusting. It was after Charlie Kirk got murdered. It is disgusting. However,
you didn't call Donald Trump disgusting, Piers. You didn't call Donald Trump disgusting.
If you let me do my
when
job,
he said it about Rob Reiner.
If you let me host my own show, I was about
to ask
Hogan Gidley, if given that we should all be able to condemn the reaction of the left to the death of Lindsey Graham and to Charlie Kirk and others on the right, would you also condemn the way that Donald Trump has talked about Robert Mueller, Rob Reiner and others that he doesn't like who die when he trashes them in public quite quickly? Because I never like him doing that. I always think it's wrong, particularly given he's the President of the United States.
Well, do you condemn what they said and lied about Donald Trump as well? Both Rob Reiner and Robert Mueller?
Well, I don't think that's a relevant point. Everyone's entitled to criticize the President of the United States. The point is, should the President use his pulpit to attack Rob Reiner when he's just been murdered? I don't think he should.
Those people have attacked him. He responded in kind. Listen, I was executive director of the South Carolina Republican Party in Lindsey Graham's era. I've known the man for a long time. Was he right on every issue? Did I agree with him on every issue? No. But he loved his country. He loved his constituents in the state of South Carolina. He loved being a United States
Senator.
Senator.
Robert Mueller.
You can hate his policies. You can not like some of his votes. I got crossways with him a couple of times. Remember, in the first Trump administration, he wasn't on board with Donald Trump's closed border policies by any stretch. On the North Lawn, I said when I was at the state party in South Carolina, he got booed off the stage for supporting George W. Bush's amnesty. We called him Grahamnesty for a reason. And his staff called me and said, hey, you know you're off the Christmas card list, right? We laughed about it, and Lindsey Graham finally came on board with the proper policy, which is to protect the American people first. And he cozied up to Donald Trump because he knew that he had enough power and sway within the United States Senate to get things done for the America First movement. He was a patriot. You can disagree with him, Mehdi, all you want to. You can not like the wars. I don't like the wars either. But the fact is, the man was a public servant his entire life.
But I didn't say good. I'm glad he's dead.
You know what?
I didn't say good. I'm glad he's dead.
I think it would be nice. I think it would be nice in public life if every time a big American public servant, someone's given their life to public life in America or the UK, anywhere actually, if both sides just manage to show a modicum of respect when somebody dies. I don't think it's too much to ask. Then he can get into the legacy stuff. Give it a B. Give it a day or two.
The problem is, you say you're on the...
That's my view.
Hold on, let me make this point. Last point, then you can cut me off. You say you're in the middle and fair on this. You said the left yesterday, I read your tweet, despicably cruel, heartless and abusive, the least kind people on earth.
Yeah.
You did not say that when Donald Trump said the same thing to Mueller and Reiner.
Actually, I have regularly criticised him.
I checked. You said take away his phone.
I have regularly criticised him. I have regularly called him out when he does that. I didn't like him doing it with John McCain or Colin Powell.
But you didn't call him despicably cruel.
No, I do think it's despicable. So let me be clear.
You do think...
Right?
Okay, good.
But there's nothing,
when we end on
there's nothing more hypocritical.
Nothing
more hypocritical than people with the hashtag #BeKind in their bio on social media.
Do you think it's despicably cruel for Donald Trump to attack the Kennedy family on the day their granddaughter Tatiana Schlossberg
when
died?
they die? That is the least be kind thing imaginable. Anyway, I'm going to be kind and put your voice out of its misery. Thank you, Mehdi. Always good to have you. And Hogan, I always appreciate you coming on too. So thank you very much indeed.
History doesn't become honest just because the funeral is over. In fact, that's usually when the rewriting begins. What struck me about this exchange wasn't that Mehdi Hasan refused to perform public grief. It was that he refused to surrender the historical record. Those are two completely different things. You can acknowledge that someone had family, friends, and people who loved them, while also asking what their decisions meant for millions of people who never had a microphone, never got a state funeral, and never got remembered by cable television. That's the conversation Piers Morgan kept trying to move away from. Instead of asking whether Lindsey Graham's foreign policy record was accurate, the discussion became whether everyone was being polite enough. That's a much safer debate, because it avoids confronting the consequences of the policies themselves. And here's where the receipts matter. Lindsey Graham's death prompted tributes from political leaders across Washington and around the world, with many praising his decades of public service and his influence on foreign policy. He died at age 71 after an aortic dissection, and his passing immediately reshaped the balance of power in the Senate because South Carolina's governor must now appoint a temporary replacement before a special election. Those facts deserve to be reported. But another fact deserves to be reported too. Lindsey Graham spent years advocating an aggressively interventionist foreign policy. Whether you agree with that approach or not, it is part of his public legacy. Journalism isn't supposed to erase that because the obituary has been published. It isn't disrespectful to discuss a public official's record. That's exactly what accountability looks like. The moment that really landed for me wasn't even about Lindsey Graham. It was when Mehdi Hasan read Hogan Gidley's own words back to him. Suddenly, the standard changed. Suddenly, the outrage became harder to maintain. That's what receipts do. They don't shout. They simply remove the escape hatch. Too often, our politics asks ordinary people to apply one moral standard to the powerful they support and another to everyone else. That's how hypocrisy survives. Not because people don't know better, but because consistency is politically inconvenient. If someone tells you kindness is the principle, then kindness has to be the principle, even when it's politically costly. If accountability is the principle, then it has to apply to allies as well as opponents. Otherwise, it's not a principle at all. It's branding. That's why exchanges like this matter. They're not really about one television debate. They're about whether journalism challenges power or simply manages public relations for it. You saw it too, didn't you? Good. That's why we're here. I'm Kathy. This is Wilson Smith, where we cut through the spin and follow the truth. If you're done with the sanitized version, you're in the right place. If you think accountability should apply to everyone, no matter whose name is next to the headline, let me know in the comments. And if you want more conversations that go beyond the talking points, subscribe so we can keep doing this together.